Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com.
Hey peoples, today we're going to take a look at Joking Hazard from Explosum, which is the parent company of Cyanide and Happiness, a very famous web comic that's been around for quite some time. They also do animation sometime as well. I find it very amusing, although I haven't checked in on it in quite a while. This was a Kickstarter game. They decided, the company behind Cyanide and Happiness, we'll just call them Cyanide and Happiness, decided to fund a offensive party card game, of course, because Cyanide and Happiness is fairly offensive as well. It's not for everybody. But just to be upfront about it, it's in the Cards Against Humanity vein, to say the least. But in this case, whereas the judge is just picking a card that someone throws in response to a black card, a white card in response to a black card, now you are actually making a comic strip. There will be a random card out there from the deck, the judge will play another one, and then the players will have to submit one for the judge to judge. I actually just explained the entire game to you, but nevertheless, I'll go ahead and show you a full overview, which is not going to be very long, and also show you some of the cards just to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Then we're going to come back and let you know what I think.
Joking Hazard is a competitive party game for 3 to 10 people, though I don't recommend that many people. Players are trying to assemble a Cyanide and Happiness comic strip. A quick note before we continue, some of the cards pictured here were add-on pack cards that came together with the Kickstarter version of the game, so your retail copy may not have all the same cards that you see here. Every card in the game is a potential panel for the strip. Some only have the blue shirt and green shirt guys, some have a few extra characters, and some have dialogue while others have none. A great many of them are R-rated or suggestive in some way, shape, or form, while others aren't suggestive at all. A few of the cards have red borders and serve two purposes. First, they're powerful, in whatever way that term is relevant here. They're usually more blatantly funny or at least more shocking compared to the standard cards, and so are a good thing to have in hand. They also serve another purpose that we'll get back to in a moment. The game is simple. Shuffle all the cards together, or don't, and have everyone draw 7. One player is randomly decided to be the judge for the first round, and every round afterward, the next person in clockwise order will be the new judge. The first thing the judge does is randomly flip a card off the deck. This begins the setup, though it may not actually be the first panel in the final strip. The judge decides that by then taking a card from their hand and placing it on either side of the deck's random panel. Now, you have a complete setup. The final task is for the other non-judge players to submit what they think is the best punchline to complete the strip. They'll take a card from hand and submit it face down to the judge. When everyone has submitted, the cards are shuffled to maintain anonymity, and then flipped face up next to the strip one by one for everyone to ogle as the third panel. The judge then chooses which card is either the funniest or at least the most applicable to the setup. Whoever played the card claims it as 1 point. When a red-bordered card is flipped off the deck to start the setup, a bonus round begins. The judge does not play a second card. Instead, this card becomes the punchline, and the other players are instead submitting the 2-card setup to it. The judge flips over each set of 2 cards and picks a winner as usual, except that the winner gets to claim both their cards as 2 points. The first to 3 points is the winner, though really you can just play until you're tired of playing.
So, to be very clear, as I stated, and as you probably witnessed yourself, if you're at all familiar with Cards Against Humanity, Joking Hazard would fall into the category of Cards Against Humanity clone. There's a judge who's judging cards submitted by the other players, and they're trying to find the funniest one, or at least the one they think is the most applicable. But in this case, of course, you're making a panel of cards, and while that may not seem like a very distinct difference, and I actually don't think, if you hate Cards Against Humanity, that this game will work for you. I personally think this is better than Cards Against Humanity. Controversial statement, I know, for those of you who are Cards fans. And again, it's not a huge gulf of difference between the two of them. But I tell you, we loved this game. Loved it. To the point where when we played it first, we played it for like an hour when we first played it. And it's not because it took a long time to go over the rules. It's a very simple game, almost to a fault. But it's just, we ignored the rule of whoever's the 3 points first wins, just kept playing. We loved it. We just kept going with it until we were sick of it. And then at the end of the night, after we played several other games, we said, let's play it again? Sure. Those of us that were left, and we did, and it was fun again. So that's just our group. I mean, we do have the sense of humor that would cater to this type of game, I suppose, or vice versa. But still, what I think works in this game, more so than in Cards Against Humanity, is that there's actually more decisions to be made here. So that you always have to deal with the card that comes off the top of the deck. But then the judge has to choose not only which card is going to be best paired with that one, so in a sense they're playing every round as well, which actually makes them more engaged, and that's also a beneficial aspect of the game as well. But they have to decide which side it goes on, and it is agonizing for the other players to sit there and be like, okay, I got the perfect card for this one, but only if you play whatever card you're about to play on this side or this side. And if you don't, it screws up the entire thing, and now I'm boned. Now, the judge has no idea that that's all going on in the minds of the other players, but it does mean that you have, if you're the judge, you're thinking like, okay, I got to make this good. I want to make it as funny as possible. I got to make this setup as good as possible in order for the players to riff off of that. So that's great. And that whole thing is very, much more creativity is put into the game in that regard. It's also the fact that it's a comic strip. So there's no longer just words on cards. Now you have a nice visual to go along with it. You may or may not like Cyanide and Happiness's art style. It's not much to it. I thought it's fine, and it works very well for what it is. And it's nice to have that element there, and it also, of course, lets them do a lot of wacky things, like one of the characters is transforming into a Super Saiyan, or other things I won't describe here. But you know what I mean if you watch what I just saw in the showed in the video. So I love that element to it, the whole spatial element, and I don't know, it just works very, very well. There's always, same thing with Cards Against Humanity, where there are answers that are clearly like funny, like, okay, the red cards especially, I'll throw this down, this will just win, but there's other times where you might want to play something a little more subtle, and I was surprised by how much more that happens in this game. One of the fun things about it is for lack of a better word, the lightning round, where a red card comes out of the deck, and now everyone has to make the submit 2 panels to just the 1 card. And someone suggested in my group, maybe you should do that the whole time because it was so fun, but that might make the game a little bit too finicky and long and drawn out, especially since there are not that many red cards. You get sick of seeing them. But when it does come out, it's a treat, because first off, you get to dump your entire hand of worthless cards, potentially. But then it's fun to see which 2 cards can work together. I actually compared it to, in our games of Cards Against Humanity, we always play with the Haiku Rule, which is to say you always end the game by having everyone submit 3 cards together, not technically forming a haiku, but maybe it does, but 3 cards that go as well as they possibly can together and hopefully are fun together. And so that's what the lightning round here reminds me of, putting the 2 panels together. I don't know, this was just great. I mean, it really felt refreshing, even though so much of it was exactly the same as Cards Against Humanity. This felt new and fresh to us. It was a ton of fun. It's infinitely expandable, potentially. And, again, it's an offensive game. I would say it's probably on par with Cards Against Humanity. Maybe not as much, since they can't have as many just outright words and descriptions of vile things. But I would say it's still, now they can have visual depictions of it, so maybe that's even worse. So it's not going to be for everyone in that regard. There's especially a lot of gay stuff in this, because both the blue shirt and green shirt guy are the only main characters. Sometimes they have other people come onto the panels, but often not. So, but not in like a derogatory way. So maybe some people will be offended by that. Maybe some people won't. I don't know. I'm just telling you. But regardless, if you don't have a problem with any of that, excellent party game, excellent funny card game. Even with 4 people, which was the minimum we played with, it still worked very, very well. More so than Cards Against Humanity. So that is Joking Hazard from Cyanide and Happiness Explosum. Highly recommend it if this is your type of thing.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.